Hello, my name is Reginald Bullock, and I am the author of Father to Son, A Guide to Growing Up in a Difficult World. This next chapter, Problems and Struggles. Man, we could talk about this for days, weeks, months, years, because we're going through problems and struggles all of the time. Um, you name it, you're going to go through it, right? A friend of mine once told me, Reggie, you're never going to live without problems. You just trade one set of problems for another set of problems. If you leave your job to go to another job, if you leave the US to go to another country, if you leave a significant other, spouse, wife, husband, to go to a different significant other, wife, spouse, husband, all right, um, problems, right? You're just trading one for the other. Now, all problems aren't bad because problems are meant to be solved. So all problems are not bad. And then there are the struggles, man. Life without struggle, well, where are you going to learn? You learn more from what you do wrong and what you get wrong than you learn from doing everything right. So you're going to go through some struggles. I mean, anybody who's ever mastered anything, whether you're an athletic person or, some sports or a professional or, a writer or doc, lawyer, um, just anyone, martial artists, um, hey, a hiker, a botanist. If you mastered it, you went through some struggles. I mean, just getting through your undergrad and grad school, man, you went through struggles. Kindergarten's a struggle from children. They just can't communicate. So, all the things that they're going through. So this chapter is very interesting. I think you're going to like it. So enjoy the chapter.
Chapter 7 Problems and Struggles. Frederick Douglass once said, "If there is no struggle, there is no progress. Those who profess to favor freedom and yet deprecate agitation are men who want crops without plowing the ground. They want rain without thunder and lightning. They want the ocean without the awful roar of its many waters. This struggle may be a moral one, or it may be a physical one, or it may be both, moral and physical, but it must be a struggle. Power concedes nothing without demand." He also said, "Men may not get all they pay for in this world, but they must certainly pay for all they get." The struggles in the life of Frederick Douglass were more than the average human being could bear in this day and age. He struggled just to be a human being, let alone a respected human being with an identity. Even his own family treated him like an outcast. One of the greatest struggles was learning to read. Although it was against the law to teach slaves to read, he managed to find people who would teach him to read. He later learned how to write, which proved to be not only a great asset to him, but to many who would follow, including you. Frederick Douglass struggled all his life, and so shall you. Men have had to struggle for almost everything they own. Ask any millionaire or billionaire if they had to struggle for their money, and you will be educated by the answers you get. Even the ones who were fortunate enough to have been born into wealth struggle to keep it, while others are struggling to take it away from them. These sorts of struggles and problems will never go away. A very close friend once told me, "No matter what type of problems you have, you can never escape them. Even if you move, you will only exchange one set of problems for another set of problems." Aside from extreme instances like what Mrs. Tina Turner, Anna Mae Bullock, went through, he was right. Speaking of Tina Turner, every day there are many women going through very similar struggles that she had to go through with her husband. My mother Annie M. Bullock Pompey even went through a similar situation with my brother's father. Fortunately, she escaped within 2 years. Never beat on a woman, and never stand and watch while someone else does it. It is wrong. If a woman deserves to be beat on, that really means she needs help, not hurt. Throughout history, men and women have struggled specifically for you and me to enjoy that which they could not. Why else would Crispus Attucks have been in battle on March 5th, 1770? Why else would Harriet Tubman have risked her life 19 times to bring 300 African Americans to freedom with the help of the Underground Railroad? Why else did Rosa Parks stand her ground, which began a bus boycott? Why else did Brother Prince Hall establish the first Masonic lodge for African Americans? Our forefathers and foremothers have built our house from the foundation up, stone by stone. It is our job to furnish that house now with the essentials that our children, our children's children, and the many generations yet to come will be able to use to continue the struggle. As an Air Force recruiter, I would get applicants that had a tendency to disrespect our country because of their ignorance. I would remind them that there was a military cemetery in Philadelphia with grave markers standing at attention neatly arranged in formation. I would tell them to go to that cemetery and count each grave marker one by one. I also told them that, as they counted, to consider the family of each individual and how his death may have affected his family. If the applicant still did not understand the seriousness of his disrespect to our country, I would then begin to explain in morbid detail what war is like. I explained how each soldier's death was because of an oath they took, so that this young applicant did not have to suffer what many in the past have suffered. By then, I was usually at the point of anger from the applicant's disrespect, so I would tell him that I should smack him back in the face for the many soldiers in the grave whose face he just smacked. After that, he had two choices: sit down and be more respectful, or get out of my office. The struggles of a soldier, while unnoticed by many, is indeed a difficult one. Only a soldier and his family can truly understand the price such a struggle really costs. Being on call 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365.10 days a year, to be deployed anywhere in the world at a moment's notice so that Americans can continue to enjoy freedom and privileges that other countries cannot, is not an easy responsibility. It takes a special person to serve his country. It takes a special person who is willing to struggle and make sacrifices necessary to defend our Constitution, and at times possibly even surrender his life for it. That is why struggles of the Buffalo Soldiers and Tuskegee Airmen should never be forgotten, for they too are the forefathers of our country. Beginning with the foremother, Bessie Coleman, the second African-American licensed pilot and the first American internationally licensed pilot, struggles in aviation were always difficult. The Tuskegee Airmen were African-American aviators who battled prejudice and racism to become fighter pilots during World War II. In spite of their superior performance, innovative aero tactics, and their ability to defeat the enemy when their white counterparts could not, they were still treated as second-class citizens. Nevertheless, despite staggering odds and problems and struggles that you and I would consider unbearable, the Tuskegee Airmen rendered outstanding service to the United States of America. Since our forefathers, our nation seems to be losing its grip on the power it once held. The younger generations for decades have been struggling to be heard. They began by hinting. Then they started asking, but the elders said children should be seen and not heard. After growing tired of that reply, they started yelling. Now that the yellers are yuppies, this new generation is demanding to be heard. The struggle started long ago and has continued to grow. It is time we listen to what the younger generation has been trying to tell us over the decades. As you grow older, never forget from whence you came and how you were. For if you do, the next generation after you will have to struggle twice as hard. While living in Saudi Arabia as a contractor for McDonnell Douglas Services, I had the unique opportunity to be the operations director of the first Black History Month program the region of Khamis Mushet had ever had. Living on what had been a predominantly white compound until that year meant that there were going to be lots of struggles. Most people thought the show was going to be a failure. Some wanted it to be a failure. A few tried to make it a failure. Not only was the show a huge success, we had the participation of more than 100 adults, children, and sponsors. We controlled the weekly compound newspaper and the closed-circuit television programs for the entire month. It was an astonishing accomplishment, and an enormous responsibility that somehow became a reality. Because of our remote location and lack of funds, finding a guest speaker was not easy. I asked everyone I thought was worthy of the task, and they all declined because the show had never been done before. Because of my past experience in public speaking, the program chairman, the research director, and my wife conspired on me and convinced me to write a speech in case we were unable to come up with a speaker. 1 week before the show, we had no speaker, so I began practicing. When the night of the show finally arrived, I was the guest speaker. At the age of 30, I felt I did not have enough gray hairs to deliver the speech. As a matter of fact, I had no gray hairs at all. I was not nervous because I had to do a speech. I had done many in my time. I was nervous because I was about to make history. I was about to continue the struggle in front of people who knew more than I did about the very subject I was going to speak on. Nevertheless, my elders gave me encouragement, and I went on stage with pride. Because of its value, I would like to share that speech with you. We shall overcome someday. That was the slogan, and that was the dream of not only Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., but for many of our African descendants of yesterday. I often wonder if they were alive today to see the fruits of their labor, the results of their bloodshed, and the aftermath of their death. What would they tell us? What would they tell us that would enkindle us for tomorrow? What would they tell us if they knew that many of us have forgotten our past? What would they tell us if they knew that many of us have no idea where we came from, let alone who we are? Indeed, we have become comfortably complacent with the luxuries that modern science and technology has given us. Being here in Saudi Arabia has even given most of us financial opportunities that many of our families and friends back home only dream about. And let's not fool ourselves. Financial freedom is a good feeling. However, are you fooling yourself into thinking that all your wealth, all your happiness, and all your successes are all of the fruits from your own labor? For those of you who really feel that way about yourself, I am here to tell you that such is not the case. Our forefathers and foremothers survived whips, chains, dog bites, disease, high-pressure water hoses, nightstick starvation, humiliation, degradation, and segregation because they had vision, they had foresight, and most of all, they had courage. They knew within their hearts that someday the fruits of their labor would overcome the inhumane atrocities they were forced to struggle with. Our African descendants knew that the fruits of their labor would truly reap the benefits as a result of their bloodshed. In your programs, will you find the meaning of red, black, and green on page 14? It alludes to the red standing for the blood and the struggle of our people. What is not there, however, is the true meaning of the red. For you cannot write, indent, print, stamp, stain, hew, cut, carve, mark, or engrave the true meaning of red on anything movable or immovable. The true meaning of red lies within the deoxyribonucleic acid, better known as the DNA structure. DNA continues to carbon copy the blueprint of our ancestors within us all. Although their blood may have been shed, it still runs through my veins. We are all repositories of the wisdom, the strength, and the beauty of kings, queens, and potentates. We possess the same blueprints that made inventors courageous, philosophers, thinkers, scientists, geniuses, and dreamers, explorers. Within us lies the fortitude to withstand the physical abuse that continues to plague us even today, as with the Rodney King incident in California. Within us lies the temperance to look past the racism, prejudice, and ignorance so that we can succeed in spite of the negative personalities we are forced to live with. Within us lies the prudence to be responsible and to do the right thing, as well as the justice to build strong families and great nations under firm leadership. However, just like any other blueprint, just like any other design you lay down on the blueprint for yourself, you must study it, analyze it, and learn it before you can begin to work. You must educate yourself about yourself. Then use yourself to better yourself so that ultimately you can be yourself. And as you learn about yourself and who you are, you will also learn that nothing in life is free. Everything has a price. So tonight, I ask you all, how are you living? Do you do unto others as you would have them do unto you? Will your children be proud of you and your accomplishments after you are gone? Yes, the children are our future. Teach them well and let them lead the way. But ask yourself, have you done the very same things that you are demanding of them to do? Have you challenged yourself to be better? Have you taken advantage of various educational opportunities to enrich yourself and your family? Are you planning for a better tomorrow and achieving your goals, or are you just talking? And for that talker, are you talking about your neighbor and friends? Are you talking about your brother and sister while trying to prevent them from achieving because you have chosen not to? Indeed, we all have opportunities to be whomever or whatever we want to be. Some of us just do not know how to play the game called life. The game of life is just like any other game. There are rules to follow, players to challenge you, and the object is to win. Take basketball, for instance. The object is to shoot the ball into the basket. The struggle is that the other team is trying to stop you. Now, you could walk off the court crying and sobbing to your coach about all the obstacles that are in your way, or you could score anyway. You can score in spite of the obstacles in front of you trying to block your shots, trying to keep you from scoring and getting ahead in life. The choice is yours. What I have said this evening was not specifically directed to the African American, rather to all descendants of the Negroid, the Mongoloid, the Caucasoid, and the Asian. Each of us is a descendant of our ancestors from one race, the human race. It seems that every time I read that speech, it touches me and commands me to think. I hope it does the same for you. No matter who you are, where you are, or how you live, there will always be obstacles to deal with and struggles to challenge you. As a man, it is your responsibility to learn to deal with these obstacles and struggles. From the time you were a baby, you have had to struggle. Just being born was a struggle for you and your mother. Growing up with many of life's challenges is a struggle in itself. The struggles that you have faced and will face are like your own shadow. It has always been there and will always be there. You may not be able to always see it, but it is there, waiting for you. And when you finally turn around and confront your struggles, just remember what Frederick Bailey Douglass used to say, "If there is no struggle, there is no progress."